everyone. Welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sonny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the best version of yourself. We're back with another episode after another brief hiatus of not posting for like 3 weeks. It just got really crazy. There was Easter, and then there was just things to do. And also, I think Cesar and I were sick for a weekish. So
yeah, I think
I got sick
on
the
sick
weekend.
first, and then you ended up getting sick too after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like COVID or anything, but it was definitely debilitating, and
Yes.
we didn't want to do anything. I've also just been feeling really lazy over the weekend, and it's not like I don't like doing this podcast, but I do want it to be good, so it requires some planning and some, attention when recording episodes. So I feel like if we can't put out our best work, we just don't record.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously want to make sure that each podcast is created and is creative in regards to the title, what we're wanting to talk about. So,
and they're also in like the right mindset to do
that
it. Because like we could just record a podcast and like because we're not in the right headspace, it's not going to be good, and then it would be a waste of time. And
of course.
Yeah, so it's just this whole thing. But Cesar and I love doing this, so we're gonna continue doing it. We're gonna continue growing with you all. And yeah, I mean, we were getting this podcast set up earlier. Well, actually, I think Cesar was video editing his own videos, and our dog Nash, we had left her in the room. Would you like to tell the people what happened?
Yeah, a brief story. Yeah, I left her in the room. I was helping Sonny with something in the kitchen. I had my headphones on my desk. See, she somehow was able to get on my desk and grab my headphones and chew on them, and then chewed on my backpack. So there's that.
Yeah. She's in her chewing era. She chews everything, even like preferably anything that's not her toys is her go-to, because she likes
whatever's fresh meat for her.
Yeah, like she likes socks or anything that she's not supposed to chew on.
She'll chew on.
So we have to keep a close eye on her constantly, or she'll be up to absolutely no good. So that was kind of upsetting for Cesar.
Yeah.
Cesar was like, "Oh my gosh!" And you're like, when like one of us goes, "Dang it!" Like Nash did something that she wasn't supposed to do. So we're working with her. I think she's getting better. She's like 15 weeks old now, which is crazy. I feel like we have a toddler. Actual parents would probably get mad that we say that, but she honestly, like, we have to keep her on a routine, and it's very difficult raising a puppy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure. No, it is. It really is.
Cesar doesn't like getting up at night to take her out when she cries.
Yeah, 2 or 3 in the morning. Yeah, a couple times.
She doesn't do it all the time, though. Sometimes she just, had a little bit too much water before bed.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, everything is looking up, I'd say. And yeah, we're just very excited about everything happening. And hopefully things are happening in your guys' life too. But today's episode is actually about, I wanted to talk about because I'm starting a new position this week, I kind of got the idea of like what I wish I knew earlier in my career, but like what we wish we knew earlier in our career.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you've been, actually I don't know if you've been working longer or if I have.
I mean, I had my first job when I was 17, 18. Yeah. So I believe you've been working longer.
No, well, you're older though. So technically.
Oh,
I've been working since I was a junior in high school, but since junior high school, but I turned 17. Yeah. I feel like obviously like there's those jobs, like you start out, there is usually retail jobs. I worked in retail for a long time. I honestly thought retail was going to be like my career when I worked at Target. I thought I was going to just continue moving up there just because opportunities presented themselves, and I'm like, gotta take it. And then I realized I can't do this. But I think that it's very interesting because there's not really classes, and this includes like in high school and in college, that really prepare you for what like the workforce is and also planning for your career. I mean, did you feel like you had that preparation before, like having like, obviously you worked at like an AutoZone and a bank, but like after that you kind of got into like what your future career would be? Did you feel like you had any idea of like how to plan like what you wanted to do and then how to go after it?
I mean, in high school we had this class called Tools for Success, and
They're never tools for success though.
yeah. I mean, it was very. I mean, looking back at it now, there was like they talked a little bit about finances, more in like how to have like proper business etiquette, like dressing up for success, like all
Which
these
I
sorts of
think is
things.
also such like bullshit now that you have like remote work. It's like I don't dress up ever.
Well, it was this. I mean, obviously back
It
then,
wasn't designed.
2009, 2008, 7,
No, it was
2008, 2009. So,
you took that in 2008?
well, I believe it was my freshman year, and so it was 2007.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I didn't say because I was
or 2008 actually.
in 2008. I'm pretty sure I was still in elementary school.
Yeah. Oh,
in 5th grade.
I was a freshman in
That's
2008.
fucking crazy to think about. That really makes it seem like a relationship is weird, but it's not. It's only like 4 years apart.
Yeah, but so yeah, they had that class, right? And don't get me wrong, it was pretty cool. Like we learned just like where the spoons go on the left to the right, or the knives and stuff like that. Then there was really cool books that, looking back at it now, I'm like, man, I should have probably paid attention to these more. There was those some of those like viral business books that you hear about. You need to read these as like your top 10 like reads of the year. It's like I can't even think of the names of them. But anyways, there's
clearly they went that important.
But just blanking out on the names of the titles of those books. But there's a few that they recommended, and it was like you took that for that whole year in your freshman year.
That's funny because my freshman year we had something called Darter Success, which is like I went to a Popka high school, so like we were the Blue Darters.
Yeah.
So they called it Darter Success, and I don't know if that was the intention of that class, but it basically acted as like a study hall for us. So we didn't really learn anything in that class. But even in college, I had a college class, and I can't remember what. I think it was like a business communication class. And I had a teacher, I guess she was a professor who like criticized how we held pens and like said that was a super important part of like etiquette too. And I was like,
how you hold your pen is like, dictates your future.
It's a little bit late for that because you learn to write when you're like in elementary school. So I don't think we're changing how we hold things like anymore. And we also had to dress up for that class too. Like I think it was every Tuesday you had to wear, I don't know if it was business casual, but like business formal or something like that. And I didn't think it was ridiculous. I understood like the idea of presenting yourself well, and that also includes like how you dress, but also it was like it's 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, and also business like professional clothes are expensive.
I mean, there's that too. If you want like to get a nice
not
blazer,
even nice. No, not even nice. I'm talking about if you shop at Kohl's, because I worked at Kohl's at the time too, or maybe I worked at Target at this time. But I worked at Kohl's before I worked at Target, and we had some options, but there was like nothing like for like a college student who's broke. Like like it was very hard to find like clothes that like you could wear for those days. And also, I think, like, I don't know, it's pretty, like, depending on where you are. Like, if you work in an office, it really depends, like, where you're working. Because not every office requires that you wear, like, and dress up like that,
Yeah, of course. Like, if you're maybe, like, Goldman Sachs or, I don't know, like, those, like, if you live in New York and you work for some finance company or whatever the case is, like, that's kind of standard, like, wearing something super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like now it's also kind of evolved, like because the workplace has evolved. It's evolved like not how you present yourself, but like some companies are way more lax with like what you wear, and not to say you can wear anything, but like being clothes that you're comfortable in. That's probably one of the reasons I love working from home, because unless I have meetings, I will obviously present myself a little bit better in like meetings with clients, but most of the time I'm in my pajamas, or at least something more comfortable than like jeans, because jeans aren't very comfortable and I find them very restrictive. So I'm just like, I want to wear like sweatpants and like a comfy shirt and like be comfortable when I'm doing my work. But yeah, I've been thinking about like what they didn't teach me. I guess I'm blaming the world. You know that scene in The Office where like Michael is saying
body image. We are here because there is something wrong with society.
See, you're always saying there's something wrong with society, but maybe there's something wrong with you.
If it's me, then society made me that way.
So I kind of feel like that saying when I'm saying they didn't teach me, but like I didn't really have like the foundation of so many things that are important like in like developing your career. So like mentorship I didn't really know was so important until more recently actually. Like how important it is to have like not just someone in your organization, but maybe someone outside of your organization like that you can talk to about career growth and development, someone who's like been there, done that, and can tell you what they did. Not necessarily say like this will work, but they could tell you what they did to kind of inspire you to make similar moves in like your career, you know?
Yeah, I still think that's a pretty important thing today is having some sort of mentor. Hopefully, maybe if you have someone that lives nearby you, or you can meet up. Like there's like these business meetups, or like these on Facebook they have like these groups that you can join
Yeah.
and like find people that are like-minded, or have similar, or maybe in your field that you're trying to be in,
Yeah.
whatever that is, and they can help you get there, and maybe provide resources. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it isn't,
I
but
see. So I'm glad you mentioned free or not. I think mentorship should be free. Like, if you have to pay someone to like tell you what you should be doing, like that's kind of fucked up. I feel like the best advice. I feel like this is a quote. The best advice is free. Yeah, I don't. I just don't like the idea of having to pay someone for advice that should just be done like given out of like the goodwill of your heart, to help someone else move forward in their career. So that's why I'm saying like you can find mentors in your workplace. Like if you see someone that's moved through the ranks quickly, or like in a very like in a way that you also want to do, you can reach out to them and ask them like out to coffee. Hey, what have you done? Or if you're not in person, just talk to them. I found like I've always asked lots of questions especially when I've been new to companies, is to ask questions to people like, oh, how did you get to where you are right now? Like, what has your career journey been like? Because it's so eye-opening to see how different people's career paths are, but they still ended up where they wanted to be.
especially when it comes to somebody that maybe, or maybe I don't know, maybe they were at the right place at the right time type of thing,
Yeah.
or they just knew the right people to get them.
Well, I think knowing the right people is only one
yeah.
part of the puzzle, because I think most of the time you have to have some type of competence in like the
Yeah, of
role that you're
course.
going to be doing. So knowing the right people is like the first step, but then you also have to like be able to impress the right people and like present yourself in a way that shows that you are qualified for certain roles. And I think, yeah, but like having a mentor it's incredible because it's someone you can learn from. Like for me, I'm not looking for like a general career mentor, but the reason I was very excited for this new role is because the person who's going to be managing me has a lot of experience in SEO and can provide me that mentorship I'm looking for and learning and becoming better.
Yeah.
And that's something that excites me because I can teach myself a lot of things, but it's great to work under someone that knows like the ins and outs, that can like transfer the knowledge and can be there like to continue to help you grow. I think just having that kind of relationship is nice.
It can obviously provide a lot of value to you and what you need and what you need to do in order to get where you need to be. So I can definitely see the importance, and that's definitely something that even ties back to this podcast. That is something that I did wish I knew a lot earlier in my career, as managing social media and creating content on YouTube is finding someone in my area in Las Vegas where I lived back then, and just asking more questions. Finding other people that have developed like a better skill in learning more about not only just like YouTube, but like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, like all these other platforms that are still providing value to people on the internet. So that is something that I think if you're listening or watching this, whatever it is that you're interested in, let's say if it's technology, maybe it's SEO, finding somebody who can teach you and maybe give you some free advice, like you said. on doing those things.
Yeah, I mean, it never hurts to ask someone like, hey,
Yeah.
like, can I learn something for you? Can I work under you? Or like,
Like, what's a book
can
or
you tell
something
me
like
like
that, you
how
know?
you ended up where you
Yeah.
were? Like, was there a course that you took? Because it all can help you in like the long term. And I didn't think I definitely didn't know the importance of it. I'm lucky to have spent like the past year and a half kind of working at a great company. Like, despite me leaving my current company for a new one, it was a great company, and I learned so much that I wouldn't have had the knowledge that I do now. And I was able to like fail and get up and do better and learn. And I think that helped me also grow. So I think also like I learned this recently. I think the best thing that you can do for your career is to do kind of what scares you. When I first took this job at Composely, I had knowledge of SEO. I knew that I was qualified to do what they needed me to do. I didn't have as much like on like paper professional experience, but I knew that I could do it. But there was that fear like, am I gonna fail? Am I gonna mess this all up? Am I gonna cost this company like hundreds of thousands of dollars? But it was the exact opposite, because the more that I realized that they had put their trust in me, they didn't hire me to do me a favor. Like they hired me because I knew I could do what they needed.
Yeah.
The more I believed that, the better I became. I had like this insane imposter syndrome when I was first entering like the workforce, that if I did get opportunities, it was because people felt bad for me. Like, oh, I only got hired because they felt bad and they didn't want to say no to me. So it would have me thinking that I wasn't actually qualified to do what I needed to do. It was like just a countdown to when I got fired because I couldn't do the job. So I was constantly like in my head thinking, am I actually capable of this? But the more I realized, like, they didn't hire, like, no company will hire you as a favor. They won't. Like, they're going to hire you because they have to pay you for what you can bring to the table. That was something that I have learned, is that if you get the job, you're capable and you can do the job. They're not hiring you as a favor. If you don't get the job, it doesn't mean you're not capable, though. It just means maybe there was a better candidate, more experience, or, a lot of things have to align when you're like applying for a job,
Yeah.
values, culture, compensation, all of that. So yeah, it was a crazy experience. But now I think also I was so conflicted. Me and you had this conversation of knowing, like, when another opportunity presented itself to me, when do you leave? Do you leave a job that you love for like for something else? Like,
Where's that decision point, right? Like, when do you decide?
when do you decide to
yeah.
take another step, or in like not even a different
Yeah.
direction, but just, to go somewhere else? And that was something that was super hard for me, because I did love the company that I worked for, but I also had this nagging, like, what if this is a better opportunity? What if, I had fallen in love with the people I interviewed with. I thought they were so great. And so when an opportunity and an offer was extended, I was like, I kind of knew in my heart I couldn't say no to it, but I had that like conversation in my head, is like, when is a good time to leave a company? Because then you're also thinking about, on paper, like, what does that look like? Because you'll have a resume. You're always going to have a resume. So if you ever want another job, they're going to see, I spent a year and a half here, a year and a half there. Like, is that going to look bad, or does it look good? But you also think about, I can't just stay somewhere just because I don't want to seem like I'm not like loyal to a company.
Yeah.
It's like, especially because I know a year and a half isn't a long time when it comes to the grand scheme of my career. But I also thought about like not wasting too much time, Like, what if I pass up an opportunity because I wanted to make sure that like on my resume this looked good, but then like another opportunity doesn't come around.
I mean, that is a good point that you're bringing up there, because if you do pass up on an opportunity, let's say, for example, like the one that you're actually taking,
Yeah.
because you obviously you're competent and at the job that you the role that you had, you were doing really well. You could literally quantify how much money you brought in with the service that you established from the ground up and where that's going. There's so much data that you can put behind that, right? So for you to leave that, you would also have to kind of think of, or you thought about, right? You just didn't do this on a whim. Like if there was a lot of thought behind you, like moving on to this next opportunity. And I think sometimes we forget to think about it and just don't do it because we're too scared and too comfortable. You get too comfortable where you're at, and maybe, don't get me wrong, maybe you love the culture, you strive in the role that you're doing, but getting comfortable often makes people not want to do what's uncomfortable. And I think you're gonna, for example, in your case, I think you're gonna grow in this new role you're gonna have.
Yeah, you know what's crazy too is like thinking about that is when I was weighing pros and cons in my head and thinking about taking a new role, I thought to myself, what if I'm not successful in this new role because I'm a fraud and because I actually just got lucky here? Like, I was like attributing all my success at my current company to maybe just luck. I was like, maybe I'm just lucky, and like, can I replicate this at another company? Can I use the same skills in another role at a different company? And it was scary, like, but then I started to think, like, yeah, the only reason that I wouldn't take this is because I'm scared. Like, it's not because I don't want the job or I don't, like, think it's a good opportunity. It's because I'm scared. So it also kind of furthered that I needed to do something that was scary, but also going to be, like, in the grand scheme of things, really great for me, because you get the most out of doing things that you don't feel qualified for and that you're scared to do. Even though, like, I feel like I am very qualified for this role, but I am scared because it's something new. You have to kind of start all over and reestablish things. Like, you got to reestablish, like, relationships, and like I have no problem with that, but at the same time, it is a daunting task to start a new job and to to just try to push your career forward. But yeah, at the end of the day too, I was thinking I want to continue to move my career forward. I want to continue to grow and learn, and I know that I'm not done learning. I still could have learned a lot at my current role, but I also knew that there was an opportunity in front of me, and it did pose a lot of opportunity to learn and to gain new skills and to do what makes me happy. So yeah, there's always that. The other thing I thought about, because I had to go through this with like during interview processes, was salary negotiation.
That's something that they don't teach you.
They don't. No one teaches you that.
I mean, actually, maybe nowadays there probably are a bunch of people who sell a course or a mentor you. Like you have to pay a mentorship, like on how to like negotiate your salary if you're.
There are people. Actually, Stephanie told me that there are people you can hire to negotiate your salary for you, but then they get like a certain amount because they negotiated for you.
Isn't that what a recruiter does? An external recruiter, like where companies hire, not internal recruitment, but external companies to find talent, and then that recruiter makes a certain amount of they make a percentage of what the salary, like a salary negotiation, where the more the more you get paid for your salary, the more they make. So obviously they're going to try.
Yeah, but it's not coming out of your paycheck.
No, it's not. It's coming out of the company.
But in this situation, what I'm saying is that, like, you personally, like, I could hire someone, but there would be like some type of fee associated with, like, depending on what kind of salary like this person got me, which I thought was wild.
Well, it makes sense because like, if you live in New York, or you live in these like financial district areas in the U.S. where people are looking to make anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 a year, or even sometimes even more, depending on obviously what they do. Like, it would make sense for you to hire someone who can somehow find a way to squeeze another $100,000 onto your salary, and then you pay them like $10,000, and imagine you make another extra $100,000 because you paid them to do that for you.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, I feel like that's a skill that, like, we as individuals need, because it all goes down to like knowing your worth, and also not just knowing your worth, but knowing the market and knowing what this type of role like that you're applying for entails, like what it's like worth on the market and what the job it actually is. So you can't just say like I'm worth this and therefore you should pay me this. You have to have some type of data points as to like why the salary you're asking for is what you're asking for.
A lot of it has to do with, I mean, like experience. If someone spent 5 years working for Apple, right, as a product developer, and so imagine if you're a company who needs a product developer or a certain specific set of skills that employee at Apple learned for 5 years, like obviously, like if you want them to work for your company, you might be able to negotiate your salary there. On that
no,
case.
I get, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
experience is a great way to like add to your salary. Like, oh, I have 5 year experience, therefore I can ask for X because I have this much experience doing so. However, my question goes to, what if you have someone who has 5 years experience, right? And then someone that doesn't have, maybe has a year or two, but can perform the role. Does that mean that they shouldn't be paid like for like their skills?
Oh, okay. So you're saying, so just re-clarify here. So you're saying if there's someone who has 5 years experience doing whatever it is, right? And then there's someone else who has 1 year experience or less, but can do the same role, can do the same task or whatever,
can execute
on those skills. I mean, that has more to do with the job market, I think, in that case, because if they're obviously in this case, right. For example, just let me know if you think. Let me know what you think about this. It would be cheaper for you to hire that person who has less experience.
But that's what I'm saying is like I feel like personally.
But
I feel like that's wrong because they can do the same job, but you're saying they should cost less because they don't have as much experience. But in this chance, like, does experience really matter if they're able to execute on the role?
Well, in this case, it would depend on how many people out there in the world, or not in the world, but in the market. That's what I'm saying. It all depends on the job market. So if there's, let's say that you need someone with a specific set of skills. I sound like that one movie, Taken. He's like, I have a specific set of skills that I've acquired throughout the years.
Okay.
Anyways, let's say that you have that you're looking for someone that has a very unique set of skills. And there isn't a large amount of people, and the market's very small for that. So you're obviously going to have to pay a premium for that person to come on board. But if there's another skill that you need, or another job, another person or people that you need in order for them to work for your company to do X, Y, Z, or whatever the case is, and there's more of those people, obviously, there's going to be some people that are going to be like, hey, I can do it for you for less, or I can do it for $50,000 or $60,000. And they can do the same skill for less. You get me? It's like it's supply and demand, and when it comes to
I don't think it just has to do with supply and demand though, like of like what roles need filling. I also think it has to do with like what the job entails. For instance, if you're having to like, if your job description is like 10 things long, like this is all that you're in charge of, that needs to be taken into consideration too, like when you're negotiating your salary. I think experience is important, and like given if you have more experience you should be able to ask for more, but I also don't think that people who don't have as much experience but can execute on the role shouldn't be slighted just because they don't have as much experience, because if they can show you like, I have these skills necessary to do this role, and like they can do the role, I don't think it means, we should pay them $10,000-$15,000 less just because they don't have experience, because at the end of the day, they're still going to have to execute on the tasks. So I feel like you have to quantify, like, not just like based on experience and based on like skills, you have to quantify based on what the role is actually requiring. To me, it's wild to me, but they don't really teach you how to negotiate your salary anywhere. And I think it's very awkward to have money conversations with companies, because I feel so bad when I say like a certain number, because one, I'm scared, am I going to be taken out of the running if I say like something too high, you know?
Yeah, no, I get you. What their budget is, like
and like they tell, I've learned like based off of TikTok, and this probably doesn't make me seem very educated, but I saw on TikTok, like, you should always ask, like, them, like, well, what's your budget? You know, like, because you don't want to give a number without knowing, like, what their budget is. That way you can kind of be aligned. But some companies don't want to share their budget. They'll be like, oh, you just give me a number and I'll tell you whether it's in it, because they don't want to have to pay you more to do the job. If you're going to ask for more, they get, like, so, like, if they're telling you, like, that's why, like, salary transparency, like, laws are actually pretty, to me, I think they're good, because then you can't be, like, undercut, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, there's I forgot what it was that I read something about, not that salary transparency laws, but more on the, like, companies are now starting to put, some of them, not all, what the range is of the specific role.
It's
or
mandatory in the state of California, and I think in New York, that you put the amount that the role, like the compensation range in the job description. Not a lot of companies do it though, because they want to interview you, and then, like, then it's kind of a game of, like, is this even going to be within the kind of compensation I'm looking for? So I think companies should put how much they're going to be making. That's like me giving you a resume and saying, I don't know, just guess at what I'm good at. Like, don't give me the salary, but I'm gonna give you a resume with nothing on it. You're gonna have to guess what I can do. It's not fair, because at the same, I think it's kind of funny, like, when we talk about, like, salary negotiations and even, like, salary transparency, that, like, it seems taboo to talk about money, but it really shouldn't be, because it's no secret that you can love your job. You can love your job, but also 100% know that you're also working to make money, because you have to live. But, like, I felt like in so many of the conversations I've had about money, I always felt bad for, like, asking for more, or, like, talking about salary, as if, like, you don't work for money. You know, like, it's like, oh, aren't you just working because you love your job? Like, obviously I do. I'm lucky to love what I
of it too, but
like. I love my job, but I also love to have food to eat and a roof over my head and a lot of other things a lot more. So I think that it's, I hate money conversations, but I've realized that they're essential to, like, making sure that you're getting paid what you're worth, and also just I mean, it's important. Like, not the I guess the world does revolve around money, but, you know, our lives are kind of centered around the fact of having money.
Yeah, so we obviously trade our time and skills for compensation at a company who obviously needs those skills in order for them to make money, in order to pay you, and obviously make a profit, in order to keep the company floating and alive and make more money. Obviously, we live in this capitalist society in the United States, so you're obviously going to have that. That's why there's competition when it comes to, like, as I said earlier, about when it comes to the job market. If there's obviously cheaper labor, companies tend to do that. Like,
well, the job market tends to be one of two things. At certain times, it's like in the, like, for instance, during, like, the Great Resignation that was happening, like, I think at the beginning of 2022, the job market was 100% like the employees market. Like, the people looking for jobs had a greater advantage because they knew that they were needed at companies. There was a greater need for candidates. And then at other times, it's like an employer's market where, like, there's not a lot of jobs, so employers can be, like, strict with, like, compensation packages and not have to pay as much because there's less demand for candidates. So, like, the competition among candidates, it's like, you know, razor thin. So yeah, I just think, I don't know. It's really interesting. I feel like I could do a whole episode on money, because I feel it's just it's funny the way that, like, we don't talk about it, especially in, like, jobs, but, like, it's no secret that we all do. But I mean, we work for money, so it shouldn't be something, like, hard to talk about, but it is. And especially with salary negotiations, that was something that I don't think I'm great at still, but not something I learned in school or anywhere for that matter. And I also feel like there's a kind of a stigma of, like, being young. I feel like you can't ask for a lot of money. Like, there's, like, people who say, like, oh, like, Gen Z just wants to be paid more without doing anything, and that, like, bugs me to my core, because I don't relate to that. Like, anytime I've asked for, like, a certain pay or increases in my comp was based on like facts and data and not just, oh, I feel like I should make more, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people think the younger generations, that's how we go about it, and it's not. The other thing that I thought about is like how to have hard conversations. Like no one prepares you for like kind of conflict in the workplace, you know?
There's probably ways that you can talk about scenarios that might come up. Like, you can kind of like role play, I guess. You can role play a scenario with somebody, and someone can walk you through what that sounds like. But yeah, they really don't. It's something that you really don't learn until you're actually put in that spot.
Yeah. I learned
Yeah.
the hard way, man, to have some of these hard conversations.
Yeah.
One of the hardest conversations I ever had to have like was telling my CEO that I was leaving. And cuz it was I felt bad because I originally was planning on leaving a month prior but decided to stay because it didn't have to do with me not liking the company. It had to do with other things, and luckily I was working for a place that was very considerate and listened to me and listened to my frustration and addressed them, you know? So I was originally going to leave, and then I decided not to. And then, so when I had to have this conversation with Mike about leaving, I felt so bad because I was like, we just did this song and dance a month ago. And now I'm saying, but this is like for good, and like I need to make this decision. And I felt really bad, and it was awkward, but I knew that like it was a conversation I had to have. I can't send this in an email. I can't send this in a Slack message. I need to say it face to face, and I need to have
Virtually, obviously.
yeah. But I also need to have a plan in place to let him know like I don't want to screw this current company over. You know, I love this company, but I'm also just thinking about my career. And that was something that I don't think anything could have prepared me for, but I also I guess I didn't think I'd ever be in a position to be like having those conversations.
Yeah.
You know, whenever I've always thought about jobs as like long-term commitments. And not that they aren't. Like you should probably stay at your jobs at least over a year. That's what they say, I guess the standard is. But I kind of thought I was going to be that person that stayed at one company and never left and like died there, you know? But I feel like that's just not really how the workforce is now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially with the rise of opportunities. Like, I'm always thinking, like, how do I grow my career? And not that you can't do it, like, by staying at a company, but I feel like you get exposed to so many different types of work environments, and that makes you valuable too.
Yeah, no, of course. It all really depends on what you want out of your life.
Yeah.
Be growing up. We've talked about it on a different podcast, but I thought I would be in the automotive industry. Don't get me wrong. I love that industry. Still to this day, there's always like something's picking at my brain. Like I feel like I can do something there. Obviously,
Yeah.
like maybe as a content creation or whatever the case is. But right now, my long-term goal is continuing to grow and understand and learn everything that has to do with social media and the changes and the algorithms. And obviously we don't know what the algorithm is, but we know what works and what doesn't, things of that nature. But because that's always been my thing. I've always loved like, oh, this is really cool. This is working. I see this working. I don't see this working.
I think you enjoy that though, because you just love figuring stuff out.
Yeah,
and,
I do.
Once you figure it out, you're like, oh, I want to be able to replicate this, and then you do it, and you're like, oh, this is really cool. But
yeah, like this podcast, for example, this is I think this was your idea, and then I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's figure this out.
I feel like all of Cesar's great ideas were my ideas. I'm just kidding. Cesar has a lot of good ideas, but I do take credit for some of like his thumbnails that did really well, and like
there's but obviously I want to make sure that it fits our brand, because we still haven't solidified that yet into like in a package where like, oh, these are our fonts, these are our colors. Like we kind of had a direction. It's not all there yet, but soon to be there, because that's what we're working on right now. Yeah. But yeah.
I just feel like by doing that, this is like off topic, is like I don't want to put ourselves in a little box. I understand the need for like consistency, because I've seen that across, obviously I work in marketing as well, and consistency is key in that case as well. But I also want to be able to explore other, like, for instance, ideas and topics. That's why it was so hard for us to find like when I knew I wanted to start a podcast, I didn't know at first what it was going to be about because there were so many things I feel like we could talk about and have great conversations. And I think the idea at first was just to have great conversations and let other people be a part of it. But then I also want to bring value to people. And I know there's podcasters I listen to that I thoroughly enjoy, would love to be friends with, but also have gotten like great advice from. And I want to be that person too. Honestly, I want to be a light in other people's lives and to just make other people happy.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can try to continue to do that with this podcast. But I think I chose growth because there was something we both were going through, and like we're always going to be growing, we're always going to be learning. We're not perfect people. We have a lot of flaws. I have a lot of flaws. So I knew that there were so many elements to growth, especially now, like even now, like I'm going to be in a new role and this is going to be a whole different like opportunity and journey. And I'm sure there will be like, blood, sweat, and tears as always. But I think about, how there were moments where I didn't feel like I was growing and like now where we are. And also being able to document it to see like where I've gone is cool. But also to let other people know that it really doesn't happen overnight. Like none of it does. I feel like becoming who you are is a consistent like and changing like process. Like you just learn more about yourself and as you go. And I feel like you don't just wake up and one day know everything about even you. Like it's funny that like I'm someone who wants knowledge on all things, but I don't think I even know myself thoroughly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all trying to still figure ourselves out and like what we still have more, where we still have more room to grow in. I think there's no limit.
There really is no limit
to
to growing. I think you can always be a better person. I think it's also too like for me, like I feel like doing this podcast holds me accountable to making sure like am I focusing on becoming the very best version of myself? Am I doing what's gonna make me happy and make me proud, and also so that I feel like when you're being like, for instance, when you're being fraudulent, people can see that.
Yeah.
And that's like my thing is I don't want to be a fraud. I want to be someone who is obviously providing like actionable advice or like just posting from like my experience, but it being real, it being authentic, and that's super important to me. I don't really know how we got on the topic of this conversation.
I started talking about like social media and stuff, and then
and you're growing into it.
Yeah.
You're going into your career. I don't think. Yeah, I just definitely didn't think that I'd be where I was. I think I wish I would have known too that like I've learned. Obviously, I think we've learned this podcast, but especially in reference to my career, that it's just not as linear as you think it was. I think at one point you had this idea of climbing the corporate ladder of like I'll go here and then I'll go here and then I'll go here. But I don't think your career looks like that anymore. At least not for a lot of people. I started out like working at Target and I thought Target was going to be like my end goal. Like I'm going to just continue climbing the ranks because the opportunities had presented itself there. And then I realized I didn't really want that, especially because I'd gone to college and got my degree and I was like, I can't work here when I spent $100,000 on a marketing degree. So I also wasn't as passionate about it. So then I got this job in marketing and in SEO specifically, and it was like my first kind of real big girl job in like what's more corporate than what I was doing. And I think for a while, like I wasn't really thinking about what my next step would be. But then when opportunities presented itself, I started to think a little bit more about my career and where I wanted to go, and whether this opportunity was a step up or like was it a step down or was it on the same page, and then you have to think about, okay, like if it's like just the same as what I'm doing, like how can I learn and grow? Is there room to grow in this opportunity? What can I learn? Is there something that I don't have, like the skills I currently don't have that I can like learn here? And those are things I had to ask myself when I took like this role, because this role that I'm taking is very similar to what I do, but there's also areas that I know that I'll be able to grow in. There's also areas that I think I will have had no knowledge on at this moment, but I'll have like so much knowledge a year from now. So You have to consider that too in your career, and like maybe not every opportunity is like technically a step up, but it's a step forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too. Is like it doesn't have to be like this thing where like the next position needs to be senior level, or the next position needs to be this, because that's what I think that kind of diminishes the opportunities you take, and the experience you could get. Because if I had this idea that like, oh, now I feel like I should be a senior in my field, and I was trying to go after senior opportunities, for one, I might not find one. But I also might not have prepared myself in the right way in the way that I could. I might not be ready for that. Although I always feel like I'm ready for anything, but you should always think about especially if an opportunity presents itself, like take it at face value. Like, what is it? What can it bring to the table? What can you bring to the table? And what do you have to gain from this?
Yeah.
And like for me, I think I've I've been fortunate enough to, for instance, at Composely, I was really able to impact the bottom line, and I took the job because I knew that my work would directly affect how the company did. And that was exciting. It's scary obviously too, but it's exciting when you see that like you're impacting a company in a positive way. Because when I worked at Target, like my store, yeah, could exceed its sales goal, but in the grand scheme of things, Target's making millions of dollars already. So like, no one's coming and saying like, "Wow, that's so incredible." Um, but here it was like really seeing every day the fruits of your labor, and that was really exciting to know that I could have such an impact on the company. And like my CEO, even on my last day, was telling me like, "You have done such an incredible job, and you should be proud of yourself." And like, I was gonna cry because like, for one, I have crazy imposter syndrome usually, and two, like I could have never predicted that I'd be able to contribute that much, And so the idea that I'll be able to go to another company and also have that type of contribution, like, is so exciting.
It was just really cool to hear that they appreciated you
Yeah.
they appreciated all the work that you did, but also you knowing that you left the mark.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, that's all I ever want to
Yeah.
do is make a mark on everywhere I go. I think that's like a good sign that you did like what you were supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Is like people remember you for
Yeah.
what you did.
But yeah.
I mean, how did you feel when you like got into your company that you're working at currently?
Yeah, like basically the best way I can put it, it's just like I knew that I have a certain set of skills that I can provide and work towards developing and growing out like the social media arm for this company that I work for. And before I was consulting, right? I was working with like different like online personalities and entertainment and whatnot. So being inside of and working with a team internally has been extremely beneficial for me in learning even more about how I can continue to optimize everything that I do on a daily basis.
I think it also teaches you like, because your background isn't very traditional when it comes to like work experience.
Yeah.
And I think it teaches you like a little bit about like communication. Like, for
Yes.
instance, you've been doing interviews and like you learn how
Yeah.
how do you conduct a like good interview? What are you looking for?
Yeah.
You know how to
Yeah.
communicate with your team because you have people that are under you and that like report to you. I think those are very important skills too. Like being in a leadership position is like, it's so important to have those right communication skills because yeah, if you don't have a good leader, you're not going to get good results.
And that too, learning even more about that as well. And there's just always like this whole podcast and what we talked about here today is there's always room to grow and like learning from our past mistakes or problems and like and the things that they don't teach you about, growing up,
Yeah.
like that you need to know in your career.
I think the thing I have learned is that I don't know anything. And not in a bad way. Obviously, I say that knowing that I know some things, but I think especially like this is what I plan to do like in my like current like role. My new role is like obviously I have the skills and stuff, but I also want to be like a sponge. I want to absorb what they have to teach me and not say like, "Oh, well, I know something better." I'm going to be like, "No, what do you have to say? What do you have to bring to the table? What can you teach me?" And then maybe like have my input. But I think it's important to also be like a sponge and just learn what you can in new roles because companies operate different ways. So that's what I plan to do. I think that there's always going to be growing to do. And so you're never going to stop growing. You're always going to have some room to improve and to be better. And so I think also what I've learned is that the knowledge that we seek, we have to go after it. Like, we have to consistently invest in ourselves and in, like, furthering, for instance, like, our education. And that doesn't have to be, like, actual education, like, through, like, school, but, like, reading articles or taking a course or going online. Like, if there's something that you're curious about, we have all the tools to learn about the things. So there's no reason that you shouldn't be informed on something that, like, you could be. Like, there's no reason you can't have certain skills if you actually try to, like, go after them. If you take the right measures, you pretty much can learn anything, and you can grow, and you can be the person that you want to be.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of information out there in order for you to learn what you need to learn to be where you want to be.
Well, that's been today's episode. We hope that you enjoy watching our podcast. We love you guys. We want you to subscribe. So if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on, like, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. 5 stars preferably, but you want to be real honest. If it really sucks, just let us know too. I'd rather know if I suck. But yeah, that has been Growing Together with me, Sonny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
We hope to see you next week.
See you guys later.